with that, we bring on Sean Payton, the Super Bowl winning coach. Over 63% of the games he coached, he won, which is unbelievable in the NFL, and he's joining us again. So I want to talk about situationally, and I said, when Russell came into the league, he looked a little like Kyler, a lot of running around. And as he's learning the game, he kind of found ways to score. Russell's not quite as mobile. And now you've got an offensive coach. I always feel the difference between Sean Payton and a lot of coaches is the red zone. It's hard. It's congested. Half your playbook you can't use. So the you and the Andy Reid separate yourself in those jammed up red zone situations. And I feel like with Hackett, he's a young guy. It's a new staff. It's a new quarterback. What is a reasonable amount of time for a critic like me to give this staff to, because they're moving the ball, Sean. It's the red zone. They're a mess.
Yeah. Look, that's a good question. I think one of the things you do every offseason when you've completed a season, you do a self-scout where you were strong and then really try to take a look from afar at your own team.
Sure.
But the thing I would say that's very important, and we did this all the time, is when Mondays came today, the first half of the Monday, every team around the NFL is putting closure on the game. So the players aren't practicing on Monday. They're getting treatment. They're working out. They're doing everything to begin the recovery process for their bodies. They're watching the film, and then by about 1 o'clock or 12 noon, there's a point at which the coaching staff flips the page to the next game.
Yeah.
And so you do that, and you're looking at the next opponent, and you have these categories such as red zone. That's going to be an important evening of game planning. But the other thing that's important is even if you're not playing, let's say your opponent is the Colts this week, I still want to see all the red zone scores and red zone plays from the week prior throughout the league. And it's just keeping up with the trends. So you look at a touchdown reel, you look at a short yardage reel, you look at a third down reel, and these are reels that are put together because it's easy to do now. It's all digital.
Right.
And you're wanting to just keep up with what's trending.
Sure.
Does it apply to my team? But the first thing I would say relative to red zone efficiency, because the quarters are a little tighter and you're operating – you have to be efficient running the ball some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
You have to be efficient running the ball. It doesn't mean you got to run 3 plays and then kick a field goal. It doesn't mean anything like that. But your running game, all right, becomes very important because you begin to see some red zone coverages that will give you 3 or 4 yards different than you might see in the field.
Okay.
But the most important thing I would say in the red zone is third down in the red zone because that's the 4-point play. And it's the 4-point play because of this. Generally speaking, if you convert a third down in the red zone, there's a high percentage you're going to end up scoring a touchdown in that drive. If you get to third down and the defense gets you off the field, you kick a field goal. So that's the 4-point difference.
Got to be good on third down.
Yeah, third down red zone is really important.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. I think about this all the time when I watch games. 2-point conversions, third down. Do you come into a week and say, okay, we've got 4 plays that are new to film. They haven't seen these. Or do you have 4, these are our overtime plays? Do you have those?
Yeah, great question. Here's exactly how our red zone hit sheet would look. The meeting would start. It would be Thursday, and we'd finish goal line, and we might say goal line this week is the 2-yard line.
Okay.
Sometimes we might bring it to the 3 if we felt like the team we were playing was weak in goal line defense. Because if I send 3 tight ends or a jumbo tackle and 2 tight ends and 2 backs on the field, it usually gets matched with goal line defense. Let's forget that. So the first clip that we look at is going to be from the, let's call it inside the 6-yard line. So every play that we're going to see from that opponent, if we're playing someone this year, we're looking at every one of their red zone plays, 0 to 6 last year and maybe a year before.
Wow.
That's how much. And so we're going to list 4 runs that we like from the 0 to 6 with built-in answers if we get blitzed.
Every week there could be 4 different plays.
Yeah, and there's some carryover as to what you like to do there, which is fine. And then we're going to list our 5 passes that we feel comfortable with from the 0 to the 6.
Every week.
We're going to take a pee break. We're going to come back in, and then we're going to put the film on again, and we're going to go 7-yard line to the 12, section 2. And we're going to do the same thing there. We're going to list. Now, we're at a point where we move back a little bit, so understand this. There might be a run or two from our first and second down plan that fit here, right? Or maybe not, depending on.
But you do. You go into a week, and you got 4 plays there.
Yeah.
4 plays there.
Yes. And then 5 passes. All right, we finish that red zone to the 20, and then we have a high red zone or fringe section. Those are shot plays, double move, plays that are maybe a little bit more aggressive that we want to take a shot at the end zone, explosives. When that is finished, we go back to the 2-point study. We look at every 2-point defense under this defensive coordinator in the last 2 or 3 years. Is he a blitz? Is he a coverage? Is he mix it up? What is it we're looking at getting? Is it different when we're in 11 personnel? So we try to find just some tendencies there relative to his background. But I would say this, oftentimes the plays that we pick for 2-point plays are coming from that 0 to 6 section.
Sure.
In other words, and so let's say there's 4 2-point plays we like.
Yeah.
2 of them we added, 2 from that section. We get into a game, and I'm on the 3-yard line, and let's say there's one call that we all agree it's a 2-point call, but it's also, I want to score 6 points with that play, not just 2. I'll figure out the 2-point. And so we generally would have 3 to 4 2-point plays with some carryover from the 0 to 6.
Yeah, what it tells me is you spend a lot of time on what Denver is struggling with. Situational,
I would
football.
say that Thursday night meeting, and my assistants would go crazy because I'd wear them out with. We would just be real meticulous, and all these staffs do this, but we would go till 1:32 in the morning on these sections.
But I think my point, and I think you answered it, is situation. This sport is governed by 3 plays. Seriously, I've watched Jacksonville lost last week on 3 plays. 2 in the red zone. Literally situational.
Yeah. Cleveland.
So, yes, this weekend. So
down.
That's right. What's amazing to me. So, I feel bad for Kevin Stefanski. Let's talk Jets win because J-Mac's a Jets fan. And a lot of people are just saying, Jimmy said it earlier, just take knees, get out of the game. I don't know if it's ego, but I often think watching Cleveland, do offensive coaches think, I can't take a knee, it's mailing it in? Do you struggle with that?
No. Some of us are too young to remember this, but the minute these charts came out that said you can now take a knee, and we have these little laminated things, under 2 minutes, they have no timeouts. You're on a knee. A minute 50, they have 1 timeout. You need to run one. It's all broken down.
Sure.
And so, look, when the minute you can take a knee and secure the win, you take a knee. Yeah.
Yes.
And now there are times where you can't take a knee, but you don't want to score.
Right.
All right. And that's a little Miller time situation.
Yeah.
In other words, we're going to win this game and have some Miller beer. All right. Miller time. And we're alert down with any play. So if everyone on defense just laid down, then you would buy time, secure it down yourself. But the last thing we want to do is change possession.
Right.
And there's that battle that always takes place between time and points. And time's more paramount there than points.
Sure.
And that's a down situation. And that was one of the other games on. So I'm not sure where that was clockwise. But if they were able to take a knee there and they ran that play, then that.
I want to talk. You went 4-0 against Brady in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously yesterday, college is the rivalry sport. NFL is just good football. But I remember 10 years ago, Ray Lewis and the Ravens and the Steelers, it was personal. It was the new tough guys on the block.
I said that yesterday, no question.
So New Orleans and Tampa, the minute Brady showed up, it's a lot of, hey, you're not walking into this division.
Yesterday was the first day after I've retired that I had FOMO. I honestly was missing out. It bothered me
to watch
that I wasn't a part of that. I saw Bruce on the sidelines, bless his heart. I'm thinking BA's close to the action, right? And we're watching another hard-fought game. And I know people want to see points, but people are drawn to a competitive game like that.
Oh, it's physical.
And it's back and forth. It's just what we talked about pregame yesterday. It was 3-3 at the half. And I don't buy into the idea the fight propelled one team to play better than another team. The fight was something that happened. It was a byproduct of how that game was unfolding. And then ultimately there were some penalties and some big plays and some turnovers, a fumble, some interceptions, and those result in the win or the loss. But to think that it was the fight that got one team, man, those teams were, to begin with, and have been
for like 3 years now.
Yeah, and look, Evans, the only thing I would say, and he's a great guy, I'm sure.
The Lattimore's owned him.
Yeah, and he gets frustrated. So in both fights that these teams have had, significant fights, you see a cheaper shot by a player. The rest have all been, Fournette's confronting one or the other.
Evans
and just talking.
Frustrated. He's the only corner that shuts him down.
Yeah, and so that's where you don't want someone to get hurt. In other words, but yeah, I mean, and look, the winner of that division is coming from one of those two teams again this year.
Right.
And so yesterday was the day where I just was jealous of everyone else that was there.
So let me ask you about the San Francisco situation. Is sometimes, not much in your career, because you had Drew Brees, but there are coaches where it's very, very rare, but you may have a backup who's seasoned, he can win you games today, and the young guy you got to teach isn't quite there, but he's got a ceiling. And I think in San Francisco, Trey Lance is smart, young, there's everything. He's got an accuracy issue, and this team is built right now to win now. And so you're sitting there and you're Kyle, and you're like, I've been to a Super Bowl with this guy, but I understand the franchise and the future.
Sure.
And so Kyle got a lot of heat because he ran Trey Lance. And this is where the media drives me nuts on this.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kyle watches every practice. He sees what he has to do with his young quarterback to move the chains. You guys are all just trying to move the sticks.
Yeah.
And so he's got to run at this point in Trey's development, where he has struggled a little bit in the passing game. He's going to have to RPO him, move him. He's going to take some hits.
Yeah, and he can just as easily, unfortunately, get injured throwing from the pocket. I heard your segment earlier. That's ludicrous. Kyle's trying to win. He's got a young quarterback that they invested a lot of draft capital,
a lot of heat here
to acquire, and we get it. And I said yesterday, the best thing sometimes that can happen are the moves. Some of your best moves are the ones that never take place, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. He was injured. Hard to trade a player like that during the offseason. Both sides agree, hey, let's come back and be a part of this thing, whatever it is, as a backup, whether you play some. But if you as a coach are thinking, I can't run Taysom Hill on this play for fear that we saw a similar injury with Dak 2 years ago with his ankle and leg. So that's silly. But I do think now quickly there's a lot of people in San Francisco that are glad that Jimmy's back. I mean, here's a guy who's been to a Super Bowl, been to an NFC championship game, and certainly they'll have to develop whoever their next two is because that takes place.
But they've got weapons here.
Yeah, well, you said it. They have a team built for now, and it's important the quarterback is ready to win now. 3 years ago when Drew went down with a thumb injury in L.A., we knew it was 5 weeks, and we felt like we had a team that was built to win now.
Oh,
we did.
Teddy was perfect.
Teddy came in, and we won 5 in a row.
He's almost like Breeze. Smart, accurate, gets the playbook.
Balls out, and he won a tough game at Seattle and then won the next 4. And so, yeah, I think 2/3 at least of the league don't have a 2 as good as someone like Jimmy Garoppolo. Like you and I both know that.
Well, he's the best backup.
Yeah, by far, at least one of the tops, and certainly a proven starter. So I think it's unfortunate what happened to Trey. I mean, we hate to see that. Here's a young player who's made progress in the offseason, getting ready to earn his first start not as a rookie, but in his second year, and he has an injury like that. We hope his recovery's fast.
So when Tua came out, people said he's a left-handed Breeze, and I said, Breeze is a top 5 guy ever. Let's stop. But there are comparisons. Not big arms, athletic, but not moving around. Great distributors, get stuff quick. Guys open, they get the ball in their hands. So Tua yesterday plays well, and everybody's freaking out. And I'm like, well, Lamar was pretty good too. My takeaway is I think Breeze and Tua have some similarities. What's the advantage sometimes of knowing, my guy's not going to run around like Josh Allen?
Well, look, first off, I've been somewhat hard on Tua, and wrong really, because these first 2 games has been really impressive. The first thing watching yesterday's game, it reminded you of Clayton and Duper. Here are Waddle and Hill, and every time they went to a game break, one of those 2 guys was not involved in a 10-yard completion, but a 40-yard completion.
Right.
And so we forget about the Clayton Duper error with Marino, but credit Mike McDaniel and those guys. It's one of those teams that's drinking the Kool-Aid and playing well, and they had a good defense a year ago, and so now they have a good offense and an explosive offense, and Tua is following the game plan each week. And so 2 weeks in, certainly I've been wrong, and he's been impressive.
Now listen, he came from the thing about Tua, which I've downplayed, he came from Saban. You had to be coachable. There was a system you played within it.
Yeah.
And McDaniel's a little bit like this. I've got a system.
Right.
You got to kind of stay, Then that's funny with Drew. So you have a system. How much did you let Drew just kind of audible at the line, and how much did you say, hey, Drew?
there were it depended on the opponent sometimes, but certainly one of his strengths was between his ears. I mean, he was a tremendous athlete, Drew, and an exceptional player, but he was also extremely intelligent, and so he became like a coach on the field. And so we would put packages in, particularly back in the red zone where you're wanting to avoid the minus plays,
right?
And it's hard to be in the perfect play every time, but when you have someone like Breeze or Brady or one of these guys, these elite level players, there are a lot of things aside from just their arm talent and legs that make them that way. And so Drew was someone that we would get in and out of concepts if we felt the look was right. And then there were other plays that just were calling run-its.
So, it's Sean Payton joining us here for our radio listeners. I think Cincinnati's going to figure it out. But there have been, in the history of the NFL, the 98 Dirty Birds in Atlanta, Cam Newton's Panthers, were a team lightning in a bottle for a year. And then they just disappear. And the Bengals were, they were at one point last year, they were kind of a 7-6 team. Then Burrow got hot. They got lucky. They faced the Chiefs after the Bills game where Kansas City comes back down to earth. They got a couple of breaks. Now, be that as it may, I think they'll correct themselves. But now, Sean, Burrow didn't play or take practice in the preseason because of the surgery. You can't hit anybody now. Nobody plays in the preseason.
Yeah.
And I watched the Rams a little bit. Stafford missed practices in games, and Burrow did. And I think to myself, if you want to have a collective bargaining agreement and nobody wears pads in practice and nobody plays in the preseasons, this is what it looks like. Because, by the way, Jalen Hurts played in the preseason. Allen, Mahomes did. Goff did. They all look great. So,
yeah.
I mean, I look at Burrow and I think it's a surgery.
Sure.
But I'm watching some of these great quarterbacks. I'm like, well, you don't take snaps and play. This is what it looks like.
Yeah. Well, look, we hit on it a little bit last week.
Yeah.
And so, look, you know how I feel about 3 preseason games. That is what it is. But I do believe you need to get work. You need to get reps. And if you start, and I'm going back here to the discussion with the injury to Lance. If you go back and start with this idea that everything you're thinking about is trying to get the player healthy to the game, that you have to be able to train, and there is a risk in training, and there's a risk in practice. You have to be smart when you do it, and we talked about how we've learned so much from where we were years ago to now.
Right.
But I think in Cincinnati's case, look, we see it a lot, actually. We see a team ascend. I think they'll correct themselves to some degree. It's going to be an interesting race. I think Baltimore still, is a team that they're going to have to deal with in that division. I have Baltimore winning that division.
Yeah.
But yesterday we saw the Rams kind of shift like we thought. We saw the Packers do that. I think, unfortunately for the Titans tonight, they just drew the short straw. That they had a chance. They need to beat New York and then deal with Buffalo. But they lose a tough one at home to the Giants, and now they're playing Monday night in Buffalo. So although I think they'll play better, I think here we go with Tennessee. They're going to start 0-2, I think. All
right, I want to talk about Kyler Murray because I've said this before. Throw this up. Do we have the thing about the issues with the quarterback? So I did this about an hour ago. I said it's funny in sports who we defend and who we criticize when it's often the same kind of issues. And I said I had 6 or 7 things that you could put up on a screen. Bad in week 1, rebound in week 2, noisy offseason, struggle with management, bad body language, throw a beautiful ball, kind of passive-aggressive. We historically defend Rodgers for that, and we crush it. We crush Kyler for it. But I'm watching Kyler yesterday, and I'm thinking, because I knew you were going to be on the show, when you have somebody that is so off-script brilliant, and you kind of know he's maybe not as good pre-snap, where is the line for you coaches with a Kyler Murray? Sometimes Aaron's going to do what Aaron wants to do. What is that line when you have a Kyler that does stuff, Sean, that nobody in the world can do?
Well, we don't want to not take advantage of that. You watch this play here, and you could have gone to the restroom, gotten a hot dog, come back, and caught the very end of it. It's hard to contain a guy like this. Now, last year was interesting when you watched Bill and the Patriots try to keep him more in the pocket with a 2-gap rush and force him to play in a spot they wanted him as opposed to this. So I think it still gets back to offensively a package that suits his talents but also takes some pressure off of him as well. And so, look, what would I like to see? I'd love to see him have a better running game under center. I'd love to see him hand the ball off to another really good player and take a deep breath.
Some layups.
And I want to see him have a few more layups. And I think when I need those plays, they're going to come spontaneously. The red zone or third down. But I think that if we're counting on those every week, that's a stressful job. Like, we're asking him to fly the Top Gun mission that we saw in the movie under the bridge, turn the wing, up the slope, drop each week, and I don't want that. I want him to cruise over Kansas and Missouri and Illinois once in a while and let someone else help him win.
They always say a player can't learn much watching. And as you're a coach now, I mean, you know the game.
Yeah.
But now that you watch it from 33,000 feet, it's an airplane movie. You're watching the league. Is there anything you've sat there in the Fox studio and thought, I never saw this before because I'm coaching? You're a million miles deep on your team.
What's interesting, we see the tape, but we see the all-22, and we don't get the audio. And so, we'll always, with our opponent, get the TV copy because you can pick up cadence and you can pick up there's certain things you can pick up on TV copy. Someone gets hurt, comes off the field, he's shaking his finger. It looks like you don't see any of that on the all-22. The all-22 is just quiet, and it's play, wide copy, boom, tight copy, wide copy, tight. And so that's what we spend most of our time on, but it is important. It is interesting when you watch the television copy, all the other things that you get, the nuances that you get.
Do you get any information maybe?
Yeah, well, 100% you do. We have a whole department in the building that's working on snap count, cadence, any and all information like the Gestapo with each opponent. Anything that's relevant that can help us win.
So you never lost to Brady in New Orleans. So let me ask you, with all you just told me, does Brady have, in poker they call them tells, does Brady have tells, or does he know that you're watching and is he mixing stuff up?
Well, there's a little bit of each. You don't see the tells. There's certain things that we felt were important defending Tom. But ultimately, look, and I said this, man, those were 2 good defenses playing yesterday. And so when you're in that type of a game and it's 3-3 at the half, a turnover, a big play that goes against you is magnified because you're in that type of a game.
Right.
If you're in a high-scoring game and there's a play that's given up, that's all right. But when you're in one of those games, field position and a turnover on the wrong side of the field, it's like quadrupled. In other words, 7 points is going to be the winner.
Sure. One big mistake.
One big mistake. And so we saw that in yesterday's game. But, yeah, look, with Tom's more difficult. He does a great job with tempo. He's going to be smart. If you leave the A-gaps open at times, he'll just take a quarterback sneak, and we'll all sit there and think, how did that just happen? He's stressing the offense or the defense as much as the defense is trying to stress him. But, yeah, we're always looking for what are the edges, what are the things, trying to get and occupy the spot behind the center 3 yards deep is important against him, because he's a climb up in the pocket player.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
How about Aaron? How did you, we'll show Aaron video.
Aaron is contained. When you get into the red zone, it was amazing. We studied the Packers red zone film 2 or 3 years in a row, and they were so efficient. But half the time, Aaron did a great job of climbs and escape, climb and escape. And so these off-schedule plays would wear you out in the red zone because it's hard to cover. We're conditioned for 3 seconds. Right. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. When it goes to 7 Mississippi, it's hard to cover someone.
And Aaron's good at buying time.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.